I'll just keep on rambling. Oh, there it is. The little notification says you are live, which means we are live. Welcome. Welcome to another episode number 2 of the Stand Out and Be Seen podcast with, Anza and Monte. I'll figure out which way is which one of these times.
Which way, right?
Well, we surmounted all this technology and all these details for another imperfect action to carry forward. We'll get an intro. We'll get fancier as we go, but fancy don't cut it if you don't get started.
Right, you got to show up first, right?
That's right.
And we talked about starting this podcast all summer, and we wanted it just to be perfect when we got started. And finally, we said, let's just get started and perfect things as we go. And I think it's way more fun that way.
Well, it's got started that way because perfection was just not going to happen. Surprise!
Hello, entrepreneurs.
Well, I'm glad that you had our wonderful topic tucked away somewhere, since we didn't have any time to discuss said topic,
Right.
since we were discussing said tech. So the topic being competitive blindness, as the title says.
Right.
And I instantly want to jump in there. I always like to say, but it's not just competitors. I like to always point out the opportunity, and it actually fits to just flip that. Think of that, opportunity blindness. Overlooking your, you see, there's where, again, I don't have another word for rival, but let's just say it, overlooking your rival's target audience, overlooking elsewhere.
Right.
Where opportunities might be just hanging out, waiting to be discovered.
Exactly. And I think, when we think about our competitors, we look at them as in an adversarial way. And it doesn't have to be that way, because some of our competitors, you and I are competitors, turn out to be some of our best collaborators. And so I think when we change our perspective on how we look at other people in our space, opportunities that are there all of a sudden come to light. Whereas when we were looking at things from a strictly adversarial point of view, it was like, oh, I could never do this or do that. They're doing this or they're talking to those people. And I think that looking at new ideas for evaluating our competitors can bring about new opportunities that maybe we hadn't thought of before, that will surface by that exercise of looking at our competitors.
There you go. Bam!
Bam, bam. We are like the emerald of marketing.
So that's actually, that topic, or that title, came from our book,
The Ideal Client Map.
The Ideal Client Map, which is one of your chapters. I think it's technically chapter 16. And where was I going with that? Oh, yes. There are some key points in here. I didn't know if they were the same key points that you said that you had talking points.
Well, why don't you bring up what you have in the book? Let's start there, and I'll improvise with other things that we've learned.
I'll refresh your memory on your chapter, Anza.
Thank you, Marty.
Well, the way you stated here, we have, well, I guess these are the main reasons people don't do competitor research. They say developing their own brand identity is so consuming that they choose not to do the research. Their intuition tells them they know their target audience well enough, And many business owners simply don't have the time or the resources to conduct the proper research.
Mm, right. Let's start with number one and work our way through it. And I've got a couple other things that have come up as we've been working with people in our BAM program. Um, so many people, when they're starting out, they think about branding as being colors and fonts and pictures and images and how we're dressing. But your branding goes so far beyond that. And really, what you and I talk a lot about is the language that we use to talk to our audience, our ideal client, our target market. And that's what branding really is all about. It's about knowing who you are, what you stand for, what your values are, knowing who your ideal client is, what their values are, what they stand for, what they struggle with, and then being able to look at the gap between the two of you and pull it together. But when someone's just starting out in their business journey, they think about all of those other things. And there's always something that's more important that needs to be done than looking at your branding message, really nailing down your ideal client avatar profile. And, it's one of those things that's backburnered. Oh, I'll get to it when I have time. Oh, this came up. I'll work on it over the weekend. And so they never really look at who else is in their space. And I think many times they don't do that because they don't know where to start. What do I look for? What's important when I'm doing brand research? What does that even mean? What am I going to gain for that? Right? They think I know who I want to work with. I know what they're like. That's all I really need to know. But some of the things that I have found over the past 15 years in business is that we tend to have blinders on and we look with tunnel vision at what we're doing, how we're doing it, who we want to do it for. And we miss out on some of the nuances that could help us get further down the road faster. And so, one of the things that I like to encourage people to do, and you and I have been doing this together, is to, we have a form that we use, but you can create your own. Be able to look at who is working in a similar space as you. Because I think lead generation is the biggest problem that any business has, right? They always are looking for more leads, looking for better qualified leads. Well, when you're doing market research, that's part of what comes to light because you're looking at other people who are in your space, who are a little bit further down the road than you are, and you're looking at where do they show up? Because one of the first questions people ask me is, "Hey, where do I find my people? Where are they at?" I don't know where your people are. We need to research that. We need to figure that out when you're just starting.
Well, that's the part of, well, who are your people?
Exactly.
You got to
Exactly.
define some stuff before you can get there.
Right? Which is why we go through the 101 questions to ask to define your ideal client because where they are, who they are, the problems they're facing in life depends on where they're going to show up. And so being able to look at people who are working with a person who's similar than yours will give you some really great clues on where to show up to find your people. So that's one of the things that you really want to look at when you're looking at competitor research. Another thing is what kind of assets do your competitors have? Do they have a podcast? Do they have a book? Do they have courses? Are they offering, we work a lot in the coaching world. Are they offering challenges? Are they offering one on one coaching, group coaching? Are they doing mastermind groups? Are they doing live workshops? Are they doing full blown seminars? What are they doing? And then compare that to what you're doing. What are you doing? What things are you aspiring to do? And then what do you see that they're doing well? And then ask yourself, is that something that I could maybe partner with them on? Could I collaborate with them on a live event? Could I do a workshop with them? Could we do a joint webinar? Because what they do and what you do might be slightly different, or it might be a step one and a step two where you would be able to combine efforts. And so you want to be asking yourself a lot of curious questions as you're looking at what this person is doing or this group of people. And I think it's always nice to do 3 or 5. And if you're really ambitious, do 7, because I don't think that there's ever too much data when you're looking at other people in your space and what you can do with them. What can you do better than them? What do you do not as well as they're doing yet? And so there's a lot of different levels that you can look at as you're starting to compile this data on what you want to do. Um, Maybe somebody else has done it. You have a conversation and you find out, yeah, I did that. It flopped big time. Oh, well, why did it flop? What caused that? I was thinking about doing that too. What would you have done differently? Do you think that would have made a difference? And so, again, you start to gain more ideas about what could be working well for you, what maybe you want to learn from somebody else's lessons learned. You look like you had a thought, Monty.
Yeah, I want to reel you back in a little bit because you're starting to go into some of the details of more why you would want to do more research. Let's back up a little bit because we started with um, some people don't realize they need to do it.
Hmm.
Some people, there's this next level, and this is where I was at in my business of competitor research. Well, that means you find out who sells the stuff that you sell and what price they're selling it at.
Which is a great start.
That's good information to have.
Hmm.
But that's what a traditional, particularly a brick and mortar type of a business
Hmm.
mentality, and where that might come from.
Sure.
And then there's that, okay, so if that's not what competitor research is all about, then what is? And then you started going into some of those things, some of
Hmm.
those levels. So the key there is that we can look at these people and find out more than just what they do and what their price is. What does it include?
Hmm.
How does it compare to what you're doing? Where are the gaps that
Right.
they don't have that maybe you do have or that you could provide?
Hmm.
Um, then, in my case, with my brick and mortar business, I was looking at these competitors because what I wanted to know was who takes care of things that I don't want to take care of.
Exactly.
So it was more of where are my gaps or where do I want to have gaps?
Hmm.
Because earlier in the book, we talk about catering to everybody and how that
Right.
destroyed my business. So to recover from that, I had to start defining and saying, well, if I can't help this person with this problem, or I don't want to, it's not that I can't, it's I don't want to help this person with this problem any longer, but I'd
Right.
like to refer them to somebody that I feel confident can solve the problem for them. And that way I still have a good relationship with them, even though I'm saying, no, I can't provide you that service. So hopefully I can
Hmm.
still retain the services that I do want to provide for them. Or at
Hmm.
the very least, they'll walk away with that, hey, that Monty was a good guy.
Right. And I think that you bring up a really good point is knowing what your client's buyer's journey is all about. Um, when we talk about lead generation, referrals is a great form of lead generation. Usually you're going to close those referrals better than you would and faster than you would with a cold lead. And so looking at where are you on their journey? You know, who in your competitor pool could refer business to you? And then who in your competitor pool could you refer your client to when they're done with what you do for them in their part of the journey? And that's a really important aspect, and where opportunities could happen that you might not see on your own until you start building some relationships with people who are doing similar work with a similar group of people.
Yep. Here, an example I had is I consulted a mechanic shop and introduced them to a car detailer,
Mhm.
and they didn't ever come up with the program, but I was trying to get them to come up with a, you know, when you bring your car in, it'll also then we'll take it here and have it detailed before it's done. It's part of the deal.
Right.
Um, or that, at the very least, I'm sure they exchanged business cards, but I was, looking for that gap. And if you're not looking for it, you can lead a horse to water, but that's that, looking at someone else who's not a competitor, because
Right.
it's auto mechanic and car detailer. So
Mhm.
they aren't competitors, but they have the same audience,
Right.
or they have a similar audience, because some people own cars and don't care what they look like, and some people only care what their car looks like, not how it runs.
Right.
So or that they only have money for it. But anyway, the
Yeah.
point being is that there's a big overlap. There's a one of those people could have, if they'd done their own competitor research,
Right.
figure that out. So there's
Right.
that competitor opportunity research. You're not necessarily looking
I
at
like that.
competitors. You're looking for all these opportunities. How could I
Mhm.
make the journey, my customer's journey,
Mhm.
better after they leave me, before they come in, while they're
Mhm.
in the middle? Is there someone else providing a service I don't provide?
Right.
And then that brings into the old affiliate
Mhm.
world. It's like,
Mhm.
then instead of collab, or instead of competitor, it's a collaborator of, well, I'll just sell your service.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. I had a thing that came to mind that um I have a lot of people who know people who write books. And oftentimes they write the book, but then they don't know how to market it. And so those people, even though they work with a very similar group that I work with, they'll send them to me after they're done writing the book to help them promote the book. And so, that is a great way that we work with the same group of people. We're not competing, even though we have some overlapping services. Again, things that they could do but don't want to do. And so they'll send them to me. And then, I've got this group of authors that I work with that have all this different kind of expertise. And I'm thinking of one in particular who is a fundraising auctioneer, kind of a unique niche, right? But after I started working with her, I saw all kinds of opportunities to be able to refer her to people who do fundraisers. Like my granddaughter's school, they do an annual fundraiser. And it was like, oh my gosh, what she's teaching in her book is so pertinent for that. So I was able to make an introduction. And then I met other people who were presidents of nonprofits. And I was like, gee, do you do any kind of fundraising? And I was able then to, pass those along. And so there's opportunities, like I said, that present themselves that you don't necessarily think of in the day to day. But when you look at, well, what's this person doing that I'm helping? Who is their ideal client? Who do I know in my network that would benefit from that introduction? And so, again, just by doing competitor research, seeing what other people are doing, filling in that gap, you're creating your own opportunities. You are actively growing your business by doing simple acts of kindness, really, is what it boils down to. You're asking, how can I help this person? How can I connect them with the next logical step in their journey? How can I help them get further down the road? How can I help them use this tool that they have, or this system, or this framework that they have? How does that fit in? And I liken it to having transferable skills. I remember back when I worked in corporate many, many, many moons ago, it was like, how can I take what I do now and go do something else? What skill did I learn here that fits there? And as entrepreneurs, we do the same thing. And we want to look at, these are the skills I have. How can I work with other people? How can I, fit into what their client's journey is? Where do I fit? How can I show value? How can I solve that problem? How can I become that next logical step?
Yep. So many ways, and it's not that one needs to do all of these things that we're speaking of. If you're out there listening, saying, "You mean I have to do all of those things?"
Mm,
No. Every situation is different. Every
right.
audience is different. Every brand is different, and
Mm-hmm.
so therefore, here's a tool chest of perspectives and as I like to call vectors of
Mm,
coming in at it.
right.
And there's countless more. A lot of them are undiscovered because of all the variables involved until
Mhm,
you start researching, until you start looking. Some of these things would never reveal themselves. You mentioned like
mhm,
blinders, but sometimes it's actually you can see everything, but it's like walking through the forest that you don't know any of the plants, so you don't know what you can eat or what you don't want to touch, or
mhm,
it's some plants indicate there's more water here or less water, or you can see it but you don't know what it means. And therefore, by going and researching a little bit, you can understand, oh well, that's what that means. So, oh, therefore over there I now have this new opportunity to check out.
exactly. And you make a great point. You can start small with your competitor research. You can ask yourself, what's one thing I want to know that my competitors are doing? You don't have to dive in and make it, this all encompassing full time job that lasts for 6 weeks. You can wade in. And as you gain more information, start asking more questions, and just keep a spreadsheet that you can continue to fill in. One of our clients that we work with together, decided when he was doing his competitor research, he wanted to look at mentors. He's looking down the road saying, this is where I want to be. What are they doing? What do I need to start preparing? Beginning with the end in mind is what he's doing. And I thought that was so brilliant. I haven't had anybody look that far down the road, but it's great to know what those people in your immediate circle are, but then looking ultimately, where do you want to be in your business? What do you need to be learning? What do you need to be growing into? What skills do you need to have? And again, looking at what are those assets. So there's a lot of reasons why somebody would want to be able to gain all of that information in order to help grow their business. Carl, my friend, hello.
On the go, yeah, which plays into what I was going to say on that, playing off of what you were talking about. We're starting small, wading in. Another thing that may happen is you may discover things and act on them and then become busy and therefore not do more research because you've accomplished what you were trying to get to. So the research has a goal. It's not just you should do it, and then
Hmm.
you should do it, you should do it, you should do it, you should do it. It's if you're not getting where you need to go, then that maybe you do need to do some more research to find more opportunities, to find new ideas. But at a certain point, when you're doing research, things coalesce. I love that word because
What a
it's
great
foggy
word,
out there, you
right?
know, and you're not quite sure. Well, what they doing? Where's my audience? Would this work? Would that work? And then you look at a competitor and you look at your ideal client's journey, that
Hmm.
customer journey, and you identify some of that. Oh, well, this fits together, and all of a
Right.
sudden, this idea coalesces.
Hmm.
And it's like, oh, hey, what if I asked them if they
Hmm.
wanted to do this thing with me? And therefore, my customer would be really happy. Their customer would be really happy.
Right.
And there it is, all about the customer journey.
It
I
is.
think that's the focus point when you're doing your competitor research. You're
Hmm.
not looking at the competitor as at the competitor.
Right.
You're looking at the competitor as how does that fit into my
Right.
customer's journey? Are
Ex
they a complete replacement for me?
Mhm,
Probably not, because you're unique. They don't have this thing that I have,
mhm,
and therefore that's a gap. So yeah,
right,
there's 10 mechanic shops. That was my point. 10 mechanic shops. But if we take our car to that one, we pay a little more, but
mhm,
they detail the darn thing.
right,
I mean, there's a bunch of people that would jump on that. That would be the niche. The
right,
people
exactly.
that really care about how their car looks
Mhm,
and the condition that it's in their customer journey. That's a key point. And
exactly,
that then so they're looking at the competitors, they don't have it. That's the
mhm,
gap.
right. You know, finding that it factor, that differentiator is really hard. And so many of my clients take a look at things and they're like, I do the same things every other executive coach does or every other business coach does. How can I possibly stand out? And looking at what other people are doing through competitive research can help you figure out how you stand out. You may not be the cheapest person out there doing what you do. In fact, you may be the most expensive person out there doing what you do because that's what it takes to make your widget and that's what it takes to support your customer service. That's what it takes to create your quality control. Um, and that's all okay. But why do you stand out in that way? And like you said, going into an auto shop, well, they detail my car for me too. What a treat. I hate getting my car detailed. I don't have time in my day to fit that in. So if I'm taking my car in for service and they're going to detail it for me too, I'm going to pay that extra money because it's worth it to me. That's a huge value to me. And so knowing those little nuances can really help you take your business down the road. I have a client that um, I work with, and we've been building out her marketing plan. And there were certain things that she didn't want to do. She was adamant she wasn't going to do it. One of those things was blogging. I don't have time. I don't see a purpose for it. I don't care if I'm searchable. She went out, she did marketing research. What does every one of her competitors have? A blog and a book. And many of them had a podcast. And she's like, "Well, I can't do all of those, but a blog I could do." And now she has started blogging. Now she has more traffic coming to her website. She is more organically searchable by creating that effort. And then, we could go into all of the benefits of things that you can do with your blog. But if she wants to stand out and be seen, she has to be doing similar things to what her competitors are doing um, in order to be searchable, to be found. And so I think it's really important to know what your competitors are doing so you can make really sound decisions in your own business.
Yeah, that's key. On one hand, we were discussing how you're looking at gaps, trying to find gaps in places and filling gaps and connecting things together. But you can also be, if you're in looking for direction or looking
Right.
for how can I um, amplify my business, how can I
Mhm.
leverage what I'm doing, or
Right.
again, what am I doing wrong, what am I not doing that I should be doing,
Right.
what things I know that I should be doing, all of these things, what things should I be doing, by
Mhm.
looking at someone who is similar to you with a
Right.
similar audience. Then
Right.
that gives you those key ideas, and then from there, again, doesn't necessarily mean, oh, I just do what they're doing. You
Right.
want to model yourself after what they're doing. Make sure your it factor is prominent and the
Mhm.
flagship point of whatever you're doing,
Right.
and then it's you. Then you make it your own. It's called hacking in a lot of circumstances,
Mm.
but it's modeling. That word's been around for a long time. It's the highest form of praise.
It
When
is.
someone models after someone, they're saying, you are so successful, you are at the point where I want to be, that I'm going to emulate that because I
Exactly.
want that.
Exactly. And I think that's a really good point too, and I'm sure that you hear this in your business as well, but one of the things that people say to me is, "How can I make money doing what I want to do?" Competitor research, again, is a really great way to answer that question. You can look and see, what are other people selling? How do they sell it? How often do they sell it? What's their pricing? And then you're able to make a determination. Maybe there's something that you really want to do. You don't find it anywhere within your competitor circle. That may be good, it may be bad. So you would want to dig a little bit deeper. Well, why isn't anybody else doing this? Maybe it was something that they tried, it didn't work. Maybe it worked for a time, went out of season. Some things go in and out of being popular. And so, again, asking those questions to get the answers that you need to grow your business. How do I get my business off the ground? How do I gain traction? How do I can create consistent income? Those are all questions that I am asked on a daily basis with, how do I figure this out? And the
And
answer is
and and, and
different
like
for
you
everybody.
said, we don't know. You got to figure that out. But a
Right,
great starting point is, well, who's already doing that?
right,
And there's that. We'll just drop that little tidbit in there. There's where mapping yourself out, like you would map out your ideal client,
right.
can help you find some of those details and directions. It's just interesting because you have your own customer journey.
You
And
do.
and you even alluded earlier about when you're doing this competitor research, or maybe it's not so much competitor and mentor. Maybe it's they're not a competitor because they're so far beyond me that
Hmm.
they're catering to an audience that's beyond my audience.
Exactly.
But I see the journey. I can identify the journey and say, oh, I could get there.
Exactly.
I just follow their journey and do it my way.
Hmm. My way, my time. Exactly.
With
Exactly.
my it factor.
The it factor. I would love to know what everybody's it factor is today. You should share that in the comments. We would love to encourage you on your journey.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you
Yeah.
stand out? What
Yeah.
is your uniqueness to say, hey, I'm going to resonate with certain people because of this
Hmm.
quality, this angle, this process,
Yeah.
this putty that fills the gap.
The putty that fills the gap. I love it.
Uh,
You always have the best visual analogies. I love them.
that comes from practice of trying to explain things to people in ways that have the context and perspective that they grasp without having to work too hard at it.
Right.
Especially when it's something invisible. It used to be auto car mechanic stuff, explaining how these things under the car that you never see work and why it's broke and what we have to do to fix it. And although it's interesting, talk about knowing your audience, knowing the person you're communicating with. I needed to identify early on, does this person want all that detail? Some people want me to tell them,
Mhm.
hey, the steering's broke. It's going to cost X number of dollars and take X amount of time. Sign on this line.
Right.
And other people are like, well, how did that happen? What if I don't fix it? Where's the how do I keep it from happening again? And all these questions. But then again, so I try to provide the answer, but they don't have the context and perspective.
Hmm.
So I have to map out that journey. Where are they at? Find the gaps. Oh, they don't understand this.
Right.
Well, it's kind of like a sewing machine. It's kind of like playing baseball. It's kind of like it can be
Or like
fun.
Encyclopedia Brown.
Hey, that was a good book or a
It
good series of
was.
books.
It
Now we're
was
dating
one of my
ourselves.
favorites.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Well, cool. That was awesome. There's so
Mhm.
much more about competitor and opportunity research,
Mhm.
but that it starts to get a little bit more defined, depending on once you've defined your audience, once you've defined
Right.
yourself a little bit further, then new
Mhm.
questions arise.
Mhm.
And so, therefore, then you may go back to some more research because these new questions have arisen, or
Mhm.
maybe it's you found the opportunities. And that's where I say that again, because that's where I'm finding myself in our collaboration is
Mhm.
that now that we've explored and done things, hey, we could write a book, hey, we could make a program, hey, we're doing these things that if I go try to find anything else, then I don't have enough time to do it all. So I'm at kind of like this little happy point where,
Yeah.
oh, I can put the competitor opportunity research on the back burner for now,
Mhm.
and flush this stuff out.
Right. And one of the things that I think is a huge time saver is don't feel like you have to go out and reinvent the wheel. If somebody is doing something that's working, follow their system. I'm not saying sell what they sell or do what they do, but follow their system. Watch how they're doing it, modify it to how it works for the way that you like to work. But you're not going to know what's working unless you take a look at what other people are doing. There is nothing new under the sun. We all just adapt to what it is that we see and we emulate that in our own special way. And so don't be afraid of what you might find out. Be excited about what you might discover is possible. Look at the doors that may open for you because of the research that you're doing, you know, the conversations that you're having, the stages that you're able to get on, the book that you're able to be a part of, the podcast guests that you're able to be on and share your perspective with another person's audience. There are so many opportunities and ideas that don't take a lot of energy to engage in, that have the possibility of giving a really great return for your time and your effort. And so, again, like Monty has said several times today, you just don't know what you might find until you start asking those curious questions and taking that next step. Well, what about this? Oh, well, then what about that? And, at the very least, do some polls, do some quizzes, do some coffee chats, make it easy, make it fun. Don't look at it as being this dreadful activity that you're going to have to do. There's some really fun ways to engage in competitor and opportunity research.
Yes, indeed. Well, it popped in my head too. Another question that you could answer potentially, who is my audience? Let's go back to that. We were saying, well, you kind of need to know who your audience is. Well, what if you don't?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you could potentially
Right.
research someone who is doing something that you're interested in, a
Mm-hmm.
topic you're interested in, and say, well, the way they're doing that, that caters to these people, but it kind of leaves these other people out. You
Right.
have to
Right.
know, you have to be fairly tech savvy to do that. If you're not tech savvy, then you're struggling. So
Right.
maybe that's where your forte is like, well, I can help the struggling, the tech strugglers. And
Mm-hmm.
and there's my audience. I can
Right.
do practically the same thing. I just have to structure it different because these
Mm-hmm.
people don't get it. That's why they're not in it, or that's why they drop
Mm-hmm.
out of it.
Right. That's so true. And I'm going to even go back to a book example, and I'm going to use my granddaughter's books. Her ideal client for who she's writing to are teenage girls. but they're preteens, so they don't necessarily have their own money. So the question is, how am I going to sell my books if my target audience doesn't have any money? So it's like, oh, you have to sell to the parent. So one would think, oh, that's the mom who's going to buy the books. So we need to target the mom. But through experimentation, what we have learned is it's the dad who's buying the books for the daughters. Totally mind-blowing for us, but through experimentation, that's what we have learned. So just by being really curious and asking questions, how is somebody else selling this product? Who are they selling it to? Why is that person buying it? What's in it for the end user? You start to leave these little trails of golden nuggets that you can start to put together and make a really incredible picture out of it, or a roadmap, if you will, to follow to get you to that destination. But if you're not asking those questions and doing that research, you're just continuing to play darts with a blindfold on. And you
Yep.
might be really good at that.
That's why opportunity research is a much better name, because there's the framework you just
Right.
applied to your own stuff.
Right. Exactly.
So it's
Exactly.
not, you're not your own competitor, but you took that framework and applied it and said, hey, look,
Mm-hmm.
we found out the dads are the buyers, and we discovered that these other people are having these results, and so therefore we can pivot.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's what it's all about, is figuring out what works and you do more of it, figuring out what's backfiring and stop doing it. And it's a constant tension, and things change. They don't just stay stagnant. It's not like, oh, I figured this out. Bam, we're just going to go this way forever. No, you're going to come to forks in the road. You're going to have bumps in the road. You're going to have some blind turns, and you're going to have to trust your instincts at times
You
based on
mean
the
my
information
tech
that you have.
platform is going to change?
Yes, yes. And it's going to make you mad.
Yep.
Oh,
Well,
boy.
let's wrap this up, because we got a cool thing to get to later, and we need to take a break first. So I
Yes,
think we
sir.
covered that fairly well. And let's wrap that back around to the book. We wrote that book, and it's in there, that whole chapter on page 126, I think it was. There it is, competitive blindness. Whoa, it disappeared. There we go.
Whoa.
Competitive blindness, where Anza tells her story of not researching, and how it was a devastating blow to her business. It's a story in there. You just got to get the book and read it. Where can you get the book? Oh my goodness. Hold on. I gotta plug that in there. I think. Come on, internet, you can do it. I know you can. Oh, I'm gonna have to drop it in the comments. We'll drop it in the comments. We don't have the physical, or we do have the physical book. What am I saying?
We do. On Halloween, we're ready to go. So we've got the
Yeah,
ebook and the
I
physical
I
book.
don't have the link for that one ready. So if you want the physical book, drop a comment saying I want the book. If you want to get the digital form, the Kindle
Right?
book, here's the Amazon link. If I put that in the comments, we'll see if that shows up in the comments. Although in YouTube, because
Mm.
we just started our YouTube channel, we don't have enough followers, we can't put links in there.
Oh,
So
of course
anyway,
not.
I'll go in there and manually drop the link in.
Okay.
and then next episode we'll have more of these details hashed out. This imperfect action is motivating. Here's what I need to get set up so that I don't look like a monkey on the screen. Ooh, 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 ooh. All right. Well, that was fun.
That was fun.
Let's have a wonderful week, everybody, and we'll see you next time on
Stand out. Be seen.
and Be Seen. We'll
You're
practice
really
doing
good.
some intro outros. It'll be fun. See y'all later.
Bye, everyone.